listen to me. I'm an old man, and I'm wise with the years. Your life is wretched. You are miserable, and you know it. You don't know anything. You have no purpose. You have no zeal. You ache inside, and you're dying. Shut up and listen to your elders. And they do. They really will. I've had women come into here, feminists, spouting the usual feminist crap where they say that they don't want to have kids, and the home is dehumanizing, and I say, shut up, be quiet. If you're going to speak to me, speak from your own mind, and quit repeating the platitudes and cliches. You're so alienated from your basic instinct.
On Friday, the 8th of March, 2024, there will be yet another referendum in Ireland to amend the Constitution, which will act as a waypoint, a milestone, yet another marker for what will be the destruction of the concept of the family, which is a necessary objective for the implementation of communism. And the shame and the humiliation of the Irish people. And by extension, then the ultimate descent of the human species into moral squalor. And as is the case with communist doublespeak, of course they will refer to this as a referendum on the family and care. Because who doesn't love families and caring for people? Because everyone's wonderful, aren't they? With such marvellously praiseworthy virtues. We're all just such good people. Who wouldn't care about family and caring for people? So, it's always their tactic to euphemistically refer to such caustic things that they do, gradually chip away at our Constitution, whatever were just the sort of the formal record of the rules that we agreed to live by in a nation, not just a state, but in a nation, which doesn't exist anymore anyway. So they're really just changing the Constitution to reflect what is the reality, more or less. But they always do this with their euphemisms, to trick people into thinking that nasty things are actually very lovely. And they fall for it. More fool them. These things are caustic. They dissolve society so they can solve et coagula, reform society into whatever shape they want it to be. With these benign sounding terms. They're so devious at creating these innocuous sounding terms that mask their true intent. They act as if they're just trying to help. And every time there's always a sting in the tail. It's always, oh, who could have seen this coming? Oh, we just tried our best, but we're too incompetent. We'll try again later. We'll have a tribunal to see what went wrong. We'll wait for the results, but in the meantime, we'll just get on with the business of not looking back in anger and things like that. We'll just move forward in a progressive way. They're just trying to make everybody feel valued and included, don't you see? And to reflect the changes in our society, of course, which, they'll admit have been happening, but they'll act as if they truly believe that all these changes are not instigated by them through their subversions, but it's just natural, organically occurring things in our society, that they're just trying to bring our Constitution up to date into the modern age, out of that Stone Age time. It was a different time in the past when people weren't as sophisticated and as moral as we are now, of course. People in the past were bad, but modern people are good. See how that works? We're always racing to the future to be morally better, be more inclusive, progressive. Anyway, let's take a look at the first page of this booklet from An Comisiún Toghcháin. That's Ireland's Independent Electoral Commission. So here's this picture of this woman, who presumably is Mrs. or Ms. Justice Marie Baker, the chairperson, not a woman, the chairperson of An Comisiún Toghcháin. On the 8th of March 2024, Irish citizens will be asked to vote in 2 referendums to change our constitution, yet again. The constitution can be changed only by a vote of citizens in a referendum. We're that important. Our laws are made by the Oireachtas. I suppose I'd better stop here. Just one definition of what these words are. So they're Irish words for the equivalent of Parliament in Britain or Congress in the United States. It's going to be much more parallel to the United States because, in theory at least anyway, even if not really in practice, Ireland is still, just like the American state is supposed to be, a constitutional republic. But, everyone thinks, well, we're a democracy, The wisdom of the crowd, no matter how stupid every individual is, that somehow they believe that wisdom comes out of stupidity of the masses. So the Oireachtas anyway is Parliament or Congress, and the Dáil, D-A-I-L, is the lower house, the House of Commons, or the equivalent of Congress in the United States, or the House of Representatives, I should say. And then the Seanad, as its name sounds like, it is the equivalent of the Senate. But I have a feeling that Seanad and Synod, to do with some kind of ecclesiastical, priestly sort of council, I have a feeling those words come from the same root stem, in, if not just Latin, but maybe it goes back to Hebrew. I don't mean to go on too much of a tangent, but they're defining our terms anyway. All laws must comply with the Constitution, which is the basic law of the state and the primary source of rights. Well, it's not the source of rights, as I'm sure a lot of people in America would object to as well. It's not the source of rights. It's merely an enumeration of rights which we're born with. We're born inherent with. We have already. And we don't just have to be born with them. You can be in the womb with them by nature of being a human being. A lot of people say that, they're God-given rights. But maybe if they get rid of God, they can take away your rights. Right, it says you have 2 separate votes on whether you wish to make the proposed changes to the current text of Article 41 of the Constitution. Both votes ask for your consideration of complex areas of fundamental rights. This guide aims to provide independent and impartial information to help you make your decision for each. The first referendum concerns the concept of family in the Constitution. The second referendum proposes to delete an existing part of the Constitution and insert new text providing recognition for care provided by family members to each other. Well, who could possibly be against that? It sounds wonderful. So we need read no more and just vote yes because we're positive people, positive, progressive people. Who would possibly be against that? Only bad people. Probably right-wing, ultra-MAGA type people. They're probably bigots and racists as well who would be negative to any of that. That's kind of always really the back foot that people are on anyway. Voting yes always sounds like the right thing to do. Yes, to change something that should have been perfectly good and at least fit for purpose in the beginning. So what significantly has changed since? Well, there have been some changes, of course. Maybe I'll leave it till a little bit later to run down through the changes that have happened quite rapidly over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Amendments to the Constitution and other things. Anyway, that's the intro. What's the proposal? The first one is the Family Amendment, the 39th Amendment to the Constitution. In Article 41.1.1, the state recognises the family as the natural, primary and fundamental unit group of society, and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. And what do they propose to change it to? Well, they're going to say the state recognises the family whether founded on marriage or on other durable relationships. Well, you see, one of the most recent previous changes to the Constitution, I better get into this now then. It's an old idea, but antiquated now, that marriage used to be between a man and a woman and a man. But now it can be between a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, or however you're identifying at any given point in time. And we're all supposed to think that is lovely. Lovely and perfectly good and progressive and modern and sophisticated. So it was only as recent as 2015, the 34th Amendment of the Constitution, the Marriage Equality Act of 2015, previously Bill number 5 of 2015 amended the Constitution of Ireland to permit marriage to be contracted by two persons without distinction as to their sex. Prior to the enactment, the Constitution was assumed to contain an implicit prohibition on same-sex marriage in the Republic of Ireland. You see, nobody needed to say in the Constitution, oh, and by the way, marriage is between a man and a woman. Because, in fact, just like free speech, they felt like, well, it's such an obvious right that it goes without saying. It doesn't even need to be enumerated. Well, it was foolish in retrospect because it just made it easier for people to act as though people didn't have the right to do that. If their views or opinions or beliefs were proclaimed to be not befitting the kind of modern society that they claim that we have now, where everybody is morally superior to anybody in the past. It was approved at a referendum on 22nd of May 2015 by 62% of voters on a turnout of 61%. This was the first time that a state legalised same-sex marriage through a popular vote. Two legal challenges regarding the conduct of the referendum were dismissed on 30th of July by the Court of Appeal, and the bill was signed into law by the President of Ireland on the 29th of August. And the President of Ireland at the time was that leprechaun-looking fellow, Michael D. Higgins. He's supposed to be, by the way, in theory, above the Seanad, above the Senate, to perform as a sort of second sanity check, a last possible veto, if he thinks something might be insane, but he didn't. He either didn't think so, or didn't think that it would benefit him to think so. So back to the proposed change here. Not only has the idea of marriage been completely changed already, so that a family can comprise of two men who are married, two women who are equally married, and they have children somehow, whether through adoption or in vitro fertilization or whatever else. But now what they want to do is say that you don't even have to be married. So it can be just a man and a woman living together, a woman and a woman living together, a man and a man living together, and that's only the beginning. We can get a lot more equal than that. We can have thruples. We can have any combination of people living together, any combination of adults and children living together, and call that a family. And they can say that that is the fundamental unit, group of society. So that's the first change they want to make. Whether founded on marriage or other durable relationships. And of course, they haven't even defined durable. And of course, if people haven't made formal, legal, and perhaps at one time spiritual agreements, or at least public proclamations of their commitment to each other, then how could any relationship, any other durable relationship, be as durable as marriage? Because obviously the purpose of marriage was to make a commitment between a man and a woman to say, if we're going to procreate, then we're going to create a stable environment for the product of our marriage, which will be children. Obviously, logic, common sense would tell you that. But we're way beyond logic now. Where we're going, we're far off the piste already anyway. So you might ask, well, what does any of it matter anyway? I mean, everything is just a natural progression from all of this anyway, isn't it? If you tolerate this, then your children will be next. That's really it, isn't it? Could have been sung at any point, whether it was the marriage referendum or the abortion referendum or whatever. So whether founded on marriage or on other durable relationships, as the natural, primary and fundamental unit group of society. Natural. They're calling it natural. And as a moral institution, they're calling it moral, possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. So they've gone backwards. They've deconstructed what it is to be married, what it is to be a man, what it is to be a woman, what it is to be a product of a man and a woman being married. They've gone back, disassembled all that, and then they've reformed it. They've coagulated it into something else entirely and made that a fundamental building block of society. The great society that we enjoy now. Right, second change. The state pledges itself to guard with special care the institution of marriage on which the family is founded and to protect it against attack. So now the state will protect whatever it deems to be a durable relationship, whether that's a they and a those and a the other living together with children from who knows where. they're going to protect that institution, or just a durable relationship, and guard it with special care, just like they did whatever they defined the previous constitutional entry of marriage and the family. So they're going to deal with Article 41.3.1 by deleting text shown with a line through it. And the state pledges to guard with special care the institution of marriage, strike out on which the family is founded, because the family is no longer proposed to be founded on marriage. If this amendment is passed and the care amendment is passed, Article 41.3.1 would be renumbered Article 41.2.1. So they'll just kind of get rid of the idea that it was even in the Constitution. Let's have a look what they say will be the legal effect of a yes vote. If a majority votes yes, then the Constitution will change. The constitutional protection of the family would be given to both the family based on marriage and the family founded on other durable relationships. So it'll be 1 and it'll be 0, both at the same time, and neither. Very quantum, isn't it? The family founded on marriage means the unit based on marriage between two people without distinction as to their sex. The family founded on other durable relationships means a family based on different types of committed and continuing relationships other than marriage. But we'll leave them undefined. Anything that's undefined can later be, of course, defined as anything as and when it might suit their purposes or their situation. So different types of family units would have the same constitutional rights and protections. Now, if everybody has the same special rights and protections, then nobody does, of course. The institution of marriage will continue to be recognised as an institution that the state must guard with special care and protect against attack, just like it did the last time. Right. Legal effect of a no vote will be, if a majority votes no, then the present Articles 41.1.1 and 41.3.1 would remain unchanged. Article 41.1.1 would therefore continue to give special constitutional status only to the family based on marriage between two people, without distinction as to their sex. Article 41.3.1 would also continue to recognise marriage as an institution that the state must guard with special care and protect against attack. So if conservatives want to rally around that, ask yourself, how conservative do you feel? Right, the Care Amendment. Now, who could possibly be against this? It sounds wonderful and lovely and caring. Let's find out what it is, what it proposes. The 40th Amendment to the Constitution will be on a green-coloured ballot paper. It proposes deleting the current Articles 41.2.1 and 41.2.2 and inserting a new Article 42b. So it'll delete Article 41.2.1. In particular, the state recognises that by her life within the home, woman gives to the state a support without which the common good cannot be achieved. Well, of course, they're assuming her gender, first of all, and secondly, we cannot any longer define what a woman is. So that article makes no sense. Of course, it would make perfect sense to delete it then from a constitution, so that our constitution could make even better sense. And it's also proposing to delete 41.2.2, which states, the state shall, therefore, endeavour. Endeavour is kind of legal speak for, we'll try, but maybe we won't try that hard, and if we fail, we're not legally responsible. Anyway, it says, the state therefore shall endeavour to ensure that mothers shall not be obliged by economic necessity to engage in labour to the neglect of their duties in the home. Well, of course, that is such an archaic and perhaps offensive article of the Constitution that it might be implied that there might be duties which a woman has in the home, and that she might neglect her duties by not being in the home. And also, what with women having all these wonderful careers, that they're all boss women calling meetings and doing Ally McBeal single white female lawyer things, breaking through the glass ceiling and becoming CEOs. Well, that's what women are doing these days. So it's a total anachronism to have this antiquated and offensive article in the Irish Constitution. Also, it is embarrassing there that really what might have been in theory at one point a choice where the woman could go out to earn extra money, that might have been a choice, but now it's not a choice anymore. It's pretty much something she has to do because An average working man could definitely not support a family on his own, on a single wage. It's all a big embarrassment, because what it looks like there is that the state is on the hook to provide enough money to all mothers in the state so that they shouldn't have to go out and work. That's very embarrassing. And it sounds to me like they owe them back pay. So once they've deleted and expunged from history those two very embarrassing articles from the Constitution of the Irish Republic, here's what they propose to replace them with. The state recognises that the provision of care by members of a family to one another, by reason of the bonds that exist among them. Well, what bonds? I mean, they haven't defined any of it. They just say, oh, some durable relationship, whatever that is. They don't even say it's between two people. These supposed bonds that exist among them gives to society, that's society with a capital S, a support without which the common good cannot be achieved, whatever exactly the common good is. We're divided amongst each other so perfectly anyway, so atomised. How can there even be a common good anymore? And shall strive to support such provision. Whatever exactly that is. It means they don't have to strive to support anything. It's all just words, sound and fury that signify nothing. Here's what it says anyway will be the effect. It says the Constitution currently, by Article 41.2, refers to the importance of the common good of the life of women within the home, and that the state should endeavour to ensure that mothers should not have to go out to work to the neglect of their duties in the home, it says in quotation marks, which I interpret to mean that they have contempt for that article of the Constitution. So the legal effect of a yes vote is, or will be, the new 42B would firstly recognise the importance to the common good of the care provided by family members to each other, whatever this new modern family is, this new found family, where everybody's different and diverse, according to whatever ratio they prescribe. Secondly, it would provide that the state would strive to support the provision of such care within families. Whatever it means nothing anymore. None of it means anything. Right, legal effect of a no vote. If a majority votes no, then the present Articles 41.2.1 and 41.2.2 of the Constitution will remain unchanged. Article 41.2 would continue to recognise the importance to the common good of the life of women within the home. And of course, women are quite up in arms about this particular proposed change to the Constitution because they fear, I think, that they might be being erased from the Constitution. And all of a sudden now it's very important to them that they maintain their privileged position in the Constitution as being the person with important duties in the home, so important that the state must make sure that they are not compelled or obliged to work, especially not to the neglect of their children. All of a sudden that's a concern to them. Whereas previously all you ever heard was, we need quotas, we need equal representation, we need equality, we need all the good jobs, we need to be women bosses, we need to be team leaders, manageresses, managers, chairwomen, chairpersons, CEOs, and we need to just lower the cost of childcare while we go off and have careers. Meaningless careers in corporations. I don't think they've yet copped onto that. I don't think they still see the real reality of it. I don't think there's any moral change here. I think it's just, oh, we have a special position here. We cannot be erased from the Constitution because that's like erasing women. And that's still bad. Erasing women is bad. Now, I mentioned abortion, and that has to be seen as yet another milestone along the road of how we got to where we are currently at this point in time in history. The 36th Amendment of the Constitution of Ireland, previously Bill number 29 of 2018, is an amendment to the Constitution of Ireland which permits the Oireachtas to legislate for abortion. And the Constitution had previously prohibited abortion, so it had specifically made it illegal in the state, unless there was a serious risk to the life of the mother. So there was already that exception. But of course, those extreme cases were argued. And I'll get into a little bit of the history now in a moment because I think it is relevant, definitely relevant, to see how we got here and where we're going. So the proposal is often described as the repeal of the Eighth Amendment, referring to the 1983 constitutional amendment, which guaranteed the right to life of fetuses, which is just the Latin for babies in the womb. making abortion illegal unless the pregnancy was life-threatening. The 2018 amendment replaces Article 40.3.3 of the Constitution, which was added in 1983 and amended in 1992. The bill was introduced into the Oireachtas on 9th of March 2018 by the Fine Gael minority coalition government and completed its passage through both houses on 27th of March 2018. It was put to a referendum on 25th of May 2018 and approved by 66.4% of voters. The amendment took effect once signed into law by President Michael D. Higgins on the 18th of September 2018. And another bit of history is that this goes back to British law of the 19th century, 1861, the British Offences Against the Person Act, which made unlawful procurement of a miscarriage a crime, remained in force after Irish independence in 1922. So a fetus or a child in the womb was considered to be a person. It had the same rights as a person. The Eighth Amendment of the Constitution, adopted in 1983, which declares the right to life of the unborn equal to the right to life of the mother, was instigated by the pro-life amendment campaign for fear that the 1861 prohibition might be weakened by liberal legislators or activist judges. Well, their fears were justified, weren't they? They were right to be fearful of it. So in 1992, Supreme Court ruled in the X case, a bit like Roe v. Wade, where they couldn't really name who the actual parties to the case were, to protect the innocent, so they claimed. And so nobody can be questioned, so that their testimony cannot be cross-examined to verify it. And of course, in Roe v. Wade, the woman or the girl at the centre of that, who had all these claims that things happened to her and therefore she absolutely had to have an abortion, much later on, when it was all too late, she admitted that it was all lies, all based on a lie. In 1992, Supreme Court ruled in the X case, Attorney General versus X, that abortion is permitted where pregnancy threatens a woman's life, including by risk of suicide. So, if either she threatens suicide, intimates it, or her doctor infers that she might, then they can say, there's a risk of suicide, therefore we have to allow abortion. So abortion is permitted where pregnancy threatens a woman's life, including by risk of suicide. No regulatory framework within the limited scope of the X case judgment was passed until the Protection of Life During Pregnancy Act 2013. Impelled by A, B and C versus Ireland in the European Court of Human Rights, and the death of Savita Halappanavar in 2012 after she had a miscarriage, so they say. The 2013 Act repealed the 1861 Act and makes destruction of unborn human life a crime. And Savita Halappanavar was a dentist of Indian origin living in Ireland who died from sepsis. It's a kind of blood poisoning as far as I understand it, after her request for an abortion was denied on legal grounds. In the wake of a nationwide outcry over her death, voters passed in a landslide the 36th Amendment of the Constitution of Ireland. Well, they say extreme cases make bad law, but isn't that always the way? It always seems to be the way that we have an emergency. We have an emergency and therefore we need to throw caution out the window and just bring in a new law and compel people to go along with something. Doesn't that sound familiar? Now, I'll read you a little bit from an article on a website called whyy.org, and it seems to be affiliated with PBS. And the headline is, Ballot Power, Ireland teaches us how to act like a progressive democracy. And this is written by Dick Pohlman on May 29th, 2018. And it reads, put your hands together for Ireland. On the issue of abortion, this heavily Catholic nation is now officially more enlightened than America's Republican Party. Now, it's difficult at first to know if they're being sincere, if they're actually writing at face value. I think they are, but at the same time, they think that they're scoring points off the Republican Party. It says, yes, folks, it's true, whereas the GOP platform seeks to control women's bodies. Control women's bodies. They always use that kind of verbiage. And then in brackets, the unborn child has a fundamental right to life that cannot be infringed, and seeks a constitutional amendment that would ban abortion nationwide. Ireland this weekend voted in a 2-1 landslide to repeal its constitutional ban and legalise abortion nationwide during the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, without the impediments that American right-wingers keep trying to enact on a state-by-state basis. Now, I'll tell you this, back in the 80s and early 90s, I did think that we were a very backwards Catholic state, a religious theocracy, and I did look to America and to the rest of Europe and think that they were very modern. I did think that. I was embarrassed of our backwardness in all things. We were very unsophisticated, I thought. Not necessarily in regards to this issue, but in all things, in technology and sophistication with regards to the news and media, our infrastructure and our culture and everything else. But this is how they always do it. They'll have us look to America and say, why can't we be more progressive like them? And they'll have Americans look to Ireland and say, why can't you be more progressive like them? They always play us off each other. Now, let me just read a little bit of what they say about this Indian dentist who was living in Ireland for some reason. On abortion, the landslide majority put a human face on the issue. That's how they do it. They find their spokesperson, even if the person doesn't actually speak for them. They find a sympathetic face or a sympathetic story, and they promote that in the media for their cause. In 2012, Savita Halapanavar, a 31-year-old dentist in Galway, on the cusp of a miscarriage at 17 weeks, was refused an abortion. According to her husband, they were reminded that Ireland was a Catholic country. Oh, how dare us! The fetus couldn't be disturbed because it still had a heartbeat. The woman had to wait days until its heart stopped beating before it could be removed in a hospital. 1 day after, she died of septicemia. Looking back now, it all sounds very fishy. But even if we take it that this extreme case of all the worst things that could happen at every moment, these rare complications that happened to occur to an Indian living in Ireland, why did abortion need to be made legal at any point, even up to 12 weeks? Now, whatever about the truth of the matter, what can never and never should be done is celebrate the killing of any life, especially the innocent life of a child in the womb. Why would that ever be a cause for celebration for anybody, let alone crowds of women, as they gather in the centre of the city to proclaim victory? How is that some kind of victory for women or for anybody? And look at this jubilant little madam here. She's so proud of herself, so self-congratulatory, so full of her own sense of victory over the patriarchy or some such received idiocy, for having won the right to have any life growing in her womb to be scraped out, dismembered, and sold to the pharmacological, biochemical, and cosmetic industries. Imagine feeling happy, let alone triumphant, about the prospect of terminating your own offspring. Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." I think they do know what they do. And that's why they're so obstinate. That's why they refuse to talk about it sincerely. That's why they have all these thought-terminating and conversation-ending buzzwords like bigot and homophobe and misogynist, internalized patriarchy, and all these other things. They have to know it's all nonsense. They have to know it's all delusion. It's all wickedness. So God might forgive them, but I won't, because they do know what they do. But don't let me dissuade anyone. Let them enjoy the hell they're building for themselves here. and any of their unfortunate progeny, which might survive their murderous whims.
So you speak with the eloquence of emergency.
Yes, there is an emergency now. It's so critical. It is so critical that we are truly facing the extermination of our species. Why? We couldn't heal ourselves of our ancient